Hello, Retail Brew fans. Thank you for being with us this morning. To kick us off, please join me in welcoming Jacob Donnelly, Morning Brew's General Manager of B2B.
Welcome, and thank you so much for being here today. Like the voice of God said, I'm Jacob Donnelly, publisher here at Morning Brew, and I'm really excited that we're going to dive into this topic. Our team is hard at work bringing retail brew to your inboxes 5 days a week. And now we're going to continue on with our track of 3 in-person events, checkout forums where we dive into strategies for retail partners. I want to give a special thanks to our partner Bolt for helping make this event possible. So let's stop hearing from me and let's start digging into retail growth strategies with our very first session. Thank you so much.
Please welcome Retail Brew's Katishi Make and John Ludlow of DSW Designer Shoe Warehouse, a designer brands company.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Jacob. Thank you, everyone, for coming. John, we're really excited to dig into everything DSW and talking about retail growth and the evolution of the company. And just for a note for the audience, with about 5 minutes left, we'll dig into some audience questions. So first thing, just to start off here, can you just talk about your role? Obviously, omni-channel means a lot these days in the retail space, and that's right where you're at. So, can you describe your role and how that sort of fits into DSW's bigger strategy right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, mic check. Well, first of all, thank you guys, everyone, for having me. It was really great to meet everyone here. Looking forward to the opportunity to connect with you guys after the event. But yeah, what better event to get away from the office, and there's free coffee, free food. So like all of you, I signed right up. So appreciate you guys having me here today. But my name is John Ludlow. I am the Vice President of Omni Operations at DSW Designer Brand. So when I really think about my role, my team, we really have 2 customers. The first customer is our customers who purchase from us. So my team covers retail operations as well as customer service, so the call center. So we're really making sure that our customers, when they are shopping with us, whether it's online or in physical retail, have an immersive experience where they are getting what they want when they come from us. We have the variety of brands in our stores, and it's our job to make sure that we're giving customers the service level that they expect. So, our motto is just say yes, and making sure that, in today's environment, customers are antsy, airlines are always delayed, your restaurant don't have enough servers. So really making sure that, we're serving our customers to the, is the mic catching? Okay, it's not just me, right? Okay. Yes, that might be better. Okay, it's always awkward when you're talking to yourself. So, so that's our first customer. And our second customer is our store associate. So from an operations perspective, we really believe that our store associate are our heart and soul. So they are at the forefront of our culture. And our team is making sure that through training, communication, rewards, recognition, and so forth, that they are a good replication of our culture. And the customers feel it because those are the folks that are really on the front line serving our customers each and every day.
Gotcha, yeah. And so part of Designer Brand's bigger strategy, very specifically, is to double own brand sales by 2026.
Yeah.
And part of that vision is Warehouse Reimagined, a new concept store that opened up roughly 2 months ago with a location in Houston. So for our audience, can you sort of describe what is Warehouse Reimagined? If I'm a customer, what should I expect walking into this new store format as opposed to a regular DSW that you would see?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. Our strategy as a retailer is to double our own brand and invest in brands that customers love. So I have the Crown Vintage on today, which I love. Katishi, give me your shoe size. I'll make sure you have a pair after this session. But we also have Vince Camuto. We have, some amazing brands that customers love. And I recently joined DSW 3 months ago, and the biggest fan of this move is my wife. I was previously athletic, and everything was running shoes, running clothes, etc. And now she has the variety of products, and we're really serving customers in all categories, whether that is athleisure, performance, casual, and so forth. And what Warehouse Reimagined is really two things. We call it internally our lab. It is where we innovate. It is where we are listening to customer insights. What we're hearing from customer is that they want a immersive, open, welcoming feeling with bright lights and where they can shop by their favorite brands. So it is a store where we are leveraging the insights and designing the store based on what our customers want and expect from us. And it is a store where we are, leveraging physical retail to amplify the strategy of doubling own brand and maintaining national brand. So we are investing in shop-in-shops and investing in immersive ways where we can stand up brands within our stores so that customers have that engaging experience when they come and shop with us.
So when you talk about the difference between owned brands and national brands, is there a difference in strategy when it comes to promoting those? Do they sort of run parallel to each other? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if any of everyone that's been to DSW, you know that we have the brands. I think for us is really giving customers, we call them shoe lovers internally, what it is that they want. Over the pandemic, athletic was a major category that customers digged into. Now that as we're coming out of the pandemic, it's wedding. And we're going to back to school, there's boots. So I think for us is really making sure that we have a wide variety of brands. So how we're doing that is investing and owning brands like I mentioned, Vince Camuto, Crown Vintage, Mix Number 6. But also, additionally to that, making sure that we're continuing those strong partnerships with our national brand partners and continuing to maintain those sales. And Warehouse Reimagined is a store where we're really standing up that strategy in a physical setting.
Gotcha. So I know you only joined recently, but I want to get a sense of what evidence do you guys have based on consumer behavior that this is the right model to go? When you talk about reducing occupancy costs, for example, which is a strategy that Designer Brands wants to employ with its stores, how do you know this will work with what consumers expect when they walk into a store, order online, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. I think there's two things that I will say that we know that the customer want in today's environment. One is when they come into a physical retail setting, they want you to be in stock. Gas is $5, $6 a gallon. So when customers are going today, they're going with intent. More likely or not, they're not going to just browse. There is a purpose in mind when they go into a store. So another aspect of Warehouse Reimagined is that we're making sure by investing in those own and national brands that we are consistently in stock in the products that customers want, and making sure that our in-stock rate is at a level where we're not disappointing the customer because we don't have that size that they're looking for. So, we're very deep on those brands that we're investing in the store, and that helps us to better serve customers, whether it is them shopping in our store or if it is serving the local community through online fulfillment, because we know that, by fulfilling an order from a local store, that allows us to get the product faster to a customer versus from a distribution center. So that's a big piece for us in terms of the customer insights. The other piece I would say in today's day and age is that I think integrated digital shopping experiences in a physical setting has really increased in penetration since the COVID pandemic. We all are eating at restaurants. None of us wants to touch those nasty menus anymore. We all want to scan a QR code and see what the menu is. So, I believe that, QR code as an example is something that customers really, really are digging into. And that penetration over the past 24 to 36 months have grown substantially. Walmart is an example where they're now piloting a Sam's Club store where you can't purchase anything The only thing you can do is scan a product and ship it to your home. Because for them, if you think about a store like Walmart, that's really the only way for them to say open a store in Manhattan, is to leverage those digital capabilities, because real estate is expensive. So what we're doing in Warehouse Reimagined is also really, really digging into technology. When you go into our store, you can scan a QR code to sign up for membership, to see product info, purchase it, and ship it to your home if you want it in a different color. For anyone that want to come and work with us, you can scan a QR code and fill out an application right there on the spot in the store. We have a partnership with Soles for Souls, which we've donated over 6 million pairs of shoes over the last 5+ years. And we have a ability to scan a QR code so you can donate a product and get VIP points from us. So really making sure that as we are investing in this concept, that we're also investing in our technology capabilities in the store.
Yeah, definitely. Just to follow up on that real quickly, are there any sort of, the store's only been open 2 months thus far, but are there any early indicators of success? And if so, or if not, what are the metrics for success when you're talking about presumably wanting to bring this concept, to expand this concept in the future? Have you seen any sort of metric sales or anything like that that kind of like indicate that this might be working out so far?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been 60 days. We're really liking the results and the customer feedback that we're seeing. What we're really focusing a lot on are what are the customers saying about the experience. And some of the qualitative feedback that they shared have been tied directly to those insights, was that when customers walk in, they love the openness of the store, the lighting of the store. And one of the things that they really called out was the customer engagement, being able to have what we call brand ambassadors. So customers that can answer any questions that you may have around the product, provide product information. And these are really associates that we've invested in terms of giving them the right product knowledge so they can speak on behalf of the company as well as the brand. Additionally to that, we're really liking a metric that we really, we care a lot about is, customers coming back and retention. I think for us is really about, are we providing an immersive, engaging experience where customers who walk in the first time, they're buying, but then also we're giving them that retail experience where they want to continue coming back, because like we mentioned at the forefront, in today's world, traffic is really a key component. So I think that's something that we've really digged into, and we're really liking the results of how customers continue to come back to the store.
Yeah, definitely. And in your previous answer, you mentioned technology is a big component of Warehouse Reimagined. And Designer Brands, in its most recent earnings, sort of talked about how it crossed the $1 billion threshold for digital sales for the first time. So given that, obviously you head up Omnichannel, can you talk about how DSW looks to expand its digital capabilities? What does that exactly look like from an in-store perspective? Or just completely online? Can you sort of parse through that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a great question. I think we're seeing an evolution of omnichannel over the last, 3-5 years. I think when everyone started talking about omnichannel, it was a very linear experience, really online to offline, right? You're browsing online, you see a product, you purchase it, and then you go pick it up in a store. Or, it's a fulfillment mechanism where you purchase something online, and rather than get it to you in 7 days from a centralized distribution center, I can ship it to you from my nearby store and get it to you in half the time. So that's really how omnichannel kind of started, is really leveraging physical retail to amplify online sales. I think how that has evolved over time is really more of an immersive digital experience when customers are shopping in the store. I think a term that's used around the industry now is phygital. I don't know if that's, I don't know who came up with that. It's not very sexy or cool, but it wasn't me. But I think phygital is a term that has been talked about a lot, and that is really how does customers leverage technology when they're shopping in a physical store, whether that is QR codes, which we talked about. We're seeing a lot in the marketplace that retailers are investing in digital content studios. So being able to, try the product, leverage influencers to really be able to showcase the product, the experience when you're shopping in a retail setting. I think those are some of the things that we're seeing from a trend perspective. So when it comes to us and what we're investing in, we're really investing in that technology experience in our store, and that starts with our DSW app. So when you walk in, how can you leverage the app to really shop in our stores? Whether that is being able to, locate the product that you're looking for in a physical store, seeing the product information as well as the entirety of the color, size, and styles that we have in that product category, and being able to really leverage it as an experience, I think. And the final thing I would say is that technology, and it goes back to kind of what my team is looking at, it's not just about how you create a more immersive experience for your customers, but you also need to leverage technology to create a more immersive experience for your associates. So for us, one of the things that we are investing in our Hedwig store is that we partner with Microsoft to create a digital display where we can provide interactive training where it is a direct line between our corporate team as well as our field team, where we can talk with them in an interactive manner. They can leverage the device for whiteboarding within the store. They can connect with other stores around them. So really being able to tap into technology to create a better experience for our customers. And the final thing I'll talk about is that is self-checkout. The next thing that we're really looking forward to turn on in our Hedwig store is a self-checkout kiosk where customers can simply scan and go. Speed is the essence. Time is precious for everyone. So being able to allow our customers to check out a product by themselves, have it be fully integrated with our VIP program, and allow them to get in and get out is something that we're really investing in as well.
Definitely. And real quick, just because you have your background previously working at Nike, what do you think, as of this moment, separates DSW from the rest of the footwear market? Like, moving forward, how does the company look to kind of like stand out ahead of the rest of the pack? Definitely maybe some things you mentioned here, but like speaking to that specifically, how do you think the company kind of is able to separate itself?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think maybe I'll answer that question to kind of like what drew me from into DSW.
Absolutely.
As you mentioned, I was previously, with Under Armour, and prior to that with Nike. I think what drew me to DSW, and I think is what is going to separate us from the other players out in the marketplace, is a couple of things. I think one, as I mentioned, giving customers the variety over the last, the athletic performance space had an amazing tailwind over the last 2.5 years during COVID because everyone was staying at home. They were very athletic. They were very casual. But now that's turned a little bit, and that industry is facing headwind. But DSW, we don't have that problem because we are providing customers with the entirety of what occasion they need. We are heavy in athletics, so we provide customers with the performance brand they need. I think I saw some crazy stat that around the number of weddings. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember being blown away by the number of weddings this year coming out of COVID. I know I've gone to like 7 this year already, and it's like only July, so it's crazy. But wedding is, we have the shoes for your formal occasion. And we have boots when it's winter. So I think one of the things that really helps us stand apart is giving customers whatever they need for the occasion that they need. And then I think the other thing that really drew me into the organization is really around what we call internally the customer brand and speed strategy, CBS. I've talked a lot about how we're leaning into customers and their insights into our stores and how we're building a more immersive experience powered by our VIP program. How we're continuing to invest in our own brands and, and continue those strong relationships with our national brands, and then being able to, get products faster to the customers with speed. We have 500 plus stores across the nation, and all of them ship online orders. So we have an amazing infrastructure where we continue to leverage physical to serve our digital growth. I think through all of that, I think was what drew me to DSW, and ultimately I think is what makes DSW a standout from the pack across the industry.
Yeah, definitely. Really appreciate that insight, John. And I think we're running up on a few minutes here, so we're going to take some audience questions. So if you just raise your hand, someone will be around with a mic. If you have a question, just let us know your name and company before asking a question. And
why you don't carry size 13 or 14?
That is, talk to me after the session and tell me what kind of brand you have and what you're looking for in size 13, and we'll help you out. But, yeah, I think it's a good question. We have size 13 in a lot of those main brands that we have, but I think when it comes to that, I think those extended aisle sizes, I think that's an opportunity where we're really leaning into technology. I mentioned like QR codes and so forth. So being able to, if we don't have it, be able to ship it to you for free of cost when we don't have it in the store. Our intent is certainly to make sure that we do have the product you want in your size. But if we don't have it, that's why where digital comes into play. And then we're making sure that our associate can get that product to you free of charge through online delivery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Tom from Bluestone Lane. How you doing?
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
Good. Any signs at all of recession? And if no, what's the outlook for the next 12 to 18 months? And then, if yes, what has been your response, company response to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that was one of your questions, right?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of something that everyone has to be cognizant of. I think what I will say is that we really like how we're performing in many different areas today. We don't have a crystal ball to see what 12 or 18 months will look like down the road. But here's what I will say: what we're doing. I think we are making sure that, like I said at the beginning, customers, especially in physical retail, they are coming with intent. So we're making sure from a service level that we're really treating them with a world-class experience when they walk into our stores. I think those are the things that we can control. And the other thing that I would say that we're leaning into that's important, I think, for all of us to consider is, the inflationary environment, those macro headwind, it is a pain for our customers, but we also need to be mindful that it is also a pain for our associates. I think that's something that we're really cognizant of, and one of the things that we've recently invested in are gas card giveaways for our store teams, which we've seen have been incredibly well received. Something that, if you guys have, I think it's a really easy, not super expensive way just to show your associate that you care about them. And that's something that we lean heavily into as well, to making sure that, because we don't know what the future looks like, but as we encounter day by day, that we have our associate in mind, because they're the ones really that are living a lot of this pressure day in, day out.
Well, I think we're running up on time, so I believe we can't take any more questions, unfortunately. But I did want to say, John, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. Up next, we have a conversation with our sponsor, Bolt. So thank you, everyone.
Please join me in welcoming back Jacob Donnelly, along with Bob Book, Chief Business Officer at Bolt.
Hey,
How are you?
I am well.
Katishi, John, thank you so much for that conversation. I think I might have to go shopping for some shoes after this conversation.
That's what I was doing while
Oh,
they
yeah,
were
find
talking
anything
on
good?
the phone. I did.
Good. All right. Well, I'm actually really excited about this because at Morning Brew, I'm known as the guy who pounds the table about first-party data. And so I'm actually really excited to jump in and talk a little bit about this with you.
Good thing there's no table here.
I know, right? I'd be beating the crap out of it. So we're talking about retail growth, and we're talking about growth strategies in the retail industry. But before we can talk about growth, we have to understand and figure out who our customers actually are. What are your thoughts on the dispersion of the third-party cookie, identity resolution, and what these mean for today's retailers?
Okay, we're making a hard left turn from Prada shoes to third-party cookies.
Yes, we are.
Really great to be here. Look, I mean, I don't know if everybody in this room knows what third-party cookies are or what the impending cookie apocalypse is, but basically the very short story is Apple started this whole thing and said third parties aren't allowed to collect data on, retailer websites, which kind of screws up retargeting, it screws up personalization. So, but it sort of, oddly enough, it sort of unfairly screws it up for smaller, even bigger independent retailers. So basically, if you're not Amazon, it screws you up, right? If you are Amazon, you don't have to worry about it because you don't really use third parties. I used to have a startup that in the ad tech space, and I went to Amazon, and I was really excited to get this big deal with them. And thankfully, one of the guys there told me, don't do a deal with us. We're going to use you, learn everything from you for a year, and then we're going to spit you out and kick you to the curb and steal all your ideas. And so it's like, okay, cool, I'll partner with everybody but Amazon. But that's what they do. They don't need to partner with retargeting companies, right? Like they've got their own entire ecosystem, so they will survive the cookie apocalypse. Apple started it with Safari. Now Google is coming with Chrome. They keep kind of pushing it back, but it's going to happen. So what does that mean, right? For independent retailers, you have to have first-party cookies, right? And so you have to match, right, an email to a cookie, which means you have to collect emails from people, right? Or you got to get them to log in, right? And so that's kind of what we at Bolt are seeing happening, and we're advocating with a lot of our customers and anyone that'll listen, is, hey, this is the beginning of the end of guest checkout, right? That whole sort of checkout as a guest, horrible experience where you're typing in your credit card and all of that stuff is, this cookie apocalypse is even sort of further pushing it out the door. That is going away. You got to register your users.
And are there any examples or case studies that you can share of companies that are crushing this pivot from the third-party cookie to capturing that first-party data?
So let's start with DSW, actually, because, as John was up here, I kind of went on my phone and started looking around at some shoes and went through their checkout experience. And so they're doing something interesting, right, which is, I don't know if everybody's going on DSW right now to try to buy some shoes, but you hit checkout. The first thing it asks you is, what's your email, right? So that's pretty good, right? Because that's actually the smartest first piece of information to get. Some other sites, right? Probably maybe some people in this room have sites where, the first thing when you come to the website is, you're a new visitor, get 10% off, get 20% off for giving us your email. That kind of works too, right? Because then you get their email, you can match them to your cookie. Now you can kind of know everything they're doing. Then when you want to go retarget them, You can't use your retargeter's cookie anymore, but you can give them an email address and say, here's all the browsing history tied to this email. It's more complicated, it's harder to do, but you can retarget them for products they've looked at. What DSW is doing is interesting in that they're saying, hey, you actually, they put like a wall in front of you. After you give that email, they say, now create a password. Right? And then there's like a little kind of thing at the bottom that says, oh, do you want to check out as a guest? The problem with that, right, it's good, right, because they're like prioritizing creating accounts. The problem is it kills conversion, right, because then people are just like, I don't know, I'm on the subway. It's just like another page, right? Every single page or wall that you put in front of somebody confuses them, kills conversion, right? So what one of our customers, Badgley Mishka, does is they're using this product that we call Bolt SSO, right? We're still in that phase of our development where we let our engineers name our products, and so, what this does is, at the end of checkout, right? There's a little checkbox that says, "Hey, do you want us to remember you for next time to streamline your checkout?" And so what Bolt does is we remember your credit card and all the kind of PCI compliant data that most merchants don't want to even touch. Right, and what's cool about that is we let you use it across any site. It's sort of like PayPal in that way. Like any site you visit that uses Bolt, we're going to just give you one-click checkout because we have all of your information. But here's what's key. We're also creating a store account for Badgley Mishka. So the next time somebody comes back, they've got their full order history if they want to start a return, and they didn't have to create a password. Right, so what's going to happen is next time they come in, as soon as they just enter their email, we're going to text them a 6-digit code. They enter that in, and now they're just logged in. Right? That's the other thing here is account utilization. Right? One thing is how quickly can you create accounts and how many accounts can you create, but account utilization is actually an even bigger deal. And with Badgley Mishka, 90% of the people that are coming there are actually logging in, right? Because they don't have to remember that password they created like 2 years ago, right?
So we've talked a little bit about data. I want to continue talking about conversion because, look, there are some things retailers can't control. Supply chain, inflation, like it's just, you can't handle that. But you can control your website, you can control the checkout experience, and you can do tests to try to improve conversion. Can you talk about some of the actions retailers should be thinking about in a way to improve the checkout process and increase revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's a huge problem. It's actually a $1 trillion problem, right? Because the average checkout rate from cart to checkout is 30%, right? That is horrible, right? 70% of the people that are like putting something in their cart, clicking on checkout, don't actually finish, right? So, we were talking about recession, right? We are seeing it across the board. And I don't know if it's recessionary or if it's just the sort of, everybody was buying everything online and during COVID, and so we're sort of seeing a pullback from that. And so what do, right? There's, in the ad tech space, there's this, everybody cares about return on ad spend or ROAS, right? There's nothing you can do about the ads part of ROAS, but the return part, right? It's all about conversion. Right, and so looking at that funnel, right, this is not the time where everybody, we're not seeing merchants looking to spend millions of dollars replatforming their whole, e-commerce stack, right? But focusing on the area that matters the most, which is that checkout area, is not that expensive, but it has the biggest impact, right? So this is going to improve your return on ad spend, right? It's going to improve your full site conversion. So, it's a massive problem, but something that's actually not that hard to fix. So, real quick, what does Bolt do, right? So we help give you that one-click, give your customers that one-click checkout experience. Now, I'm not talking about the Amazon Buy Now button where it's on a product page. I'm talking about somebody gets to your cart, they've got a bunch of items in there, and instead of having to go through that whole guest checkout experience, we're automatically recognizing them, right? So for Badgley Mishka, the checkout rate is 80% if somebody has a Bolt account, right? And so there's two ways you can have one. You can have it from checking out on another merchant that uses Bolt, or as those repeat customers come through, the first time they check out on Badgley Mishka, they're creating that account, right? Remember, they get a Bazimishka account, they get a Bolt account. The next time they come back a month later, we're auto-recognizing them, doubling their conversion rate. So it's a huge win.
So I guess one final question is, do you see any differences in checkout using Bolt from a mobile or a desktop perspective? Because you were saying you were using DSW on your phone, but do you see any differences there?
Oh, 100%. I mean, everything on desktop is magnified on mobile, right? The problem of having to enter in your credit card number. And even those little tools where it's like, oh, you enter in your little CVC code and then we'll auto-fill everything. It's just like, it fills in stuff wrong. You have to keep entering it in like 5 different times to get your name and everything in there. And it's like that delightful experience. If anybody's had this, right? ShopPay does this, right? And Bolt basically does it for every other e-commerce platform, right? We're creating this whole federation of all these other platforms. We have partnerships with Adobe, BigCommerce, PrestaShop, Solidus, and more that I can't announce yet. And so it's just that delightful experience of all I did was just start going through checkout, put in my email, I got a code, and now I'm at the end of checkout. I didn't have to do anything.
That's really impactful. Bob, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again to Bolt for making this event possible. Next up, we're diving further into the world of retail growth with VMLY&R Commerce.
Please give a warm welcome to Retail Brew's Gina Sharma and VMLY&R Commerce's Curt Munk.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Curt, we're really excited to have you here today. Thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure.
And before we get started, one note for the audience, we will have time for questions at the end of our chat. So I guess my first question is really more about your role and what you do at VMLY&R Commerce. It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful of consonants,
I know.
Isn't it? Yes.
I had to practice that a lot. But Chief Innovation Officer, it's an interesting title. What does a Chief Innovation Officer do?
It's a great job. I'm the guy that pulls out the crystal ball, right? Or at least that's the hope. In working with our clients, we kind of need to know where consumers are going to be, where shoppers are going to be, how they want to be buying, how technology integrates with commerce. So somebody has to kind of go on record and say this is where the future is headed. So that's largely my job. So I try to make it the Chief Interesting Officer as well as the Chief Innovation Officer. So if it's interesting, I'm probably doing my job well.
Yeah, he was telling me backstage that that's what they might change his title to, Chief
We'll see.
Interesting Officer.
Depends on how well this goes.
Well, among your interesting conversations with retailers that you probably have on a daily basis, what seems to be their top concerns right now, given that they're faced with so many challenges like recession, inflation, supply chain crisis, the war in Ukraine? I'm sure I'm missing a couple.
Other than that, there's not much going
Okay.
on. Yeah, it feels like we've kind of fixed supply chain from a retailer and a brand standpoint in many ways. One of the things that keeps showing up that I think is a little bit unexpected is how over the last 2 years we've gotten terribly efficient at e-commerce. Right? 5 years ago as an industry, we were talking about how do we take friction out of the e-commerce system, and I think we've been very successful with that. So successful that I would wager we have taken fun out of e-commerce in some ways too. It's becoming terribly perfunctory, it's becoming very efficient, but it's not very inspiring. I mean, what's interesting is over the last year, we have seen kind of a flip of how much people actually enjoy shopping and buying, and some of you may have experienced this personally as well. I think the numbers are 77% of consumers now say they have more fun at work than the 55% who say they have fun shopping, right? So for those of us that are in the retail business and we hear those numbers, we should be raising a little bit of alarm bells about what is it that we are doing in this business. Because the idea of retail therapy that we all kind of grew up with, I mean, you got something psychological out of that shopping and buying experience. And I'm terribly worried, as are many of my clients, about the fact that that's going away.
Is there a retailer that's doing it right that comes to your mind?
I think lots of them are doing it right. I mean, you kind of have to call out Doug McMillon and company with what Walmart's doing and all of their tech innovation. You know, they chose not to do kind of a counter Prime Day thing last week, but I have a feeling they have something else up their sleeves. One brand that I think is terribly fun that I just have to mention is Chubbies, which is kind of a men's clothing brand. They're kind of known for maybe a little bit uncomfortably short shorts and flags on things and all of that. But their DTC relationship, I've never purchased anything from them, but my wife has, and she's constantly saying, look at what Chubbies sent me, right? And it's generally hysterical and maybe a little bit unusual, but I think that's an example. Prime Day, last week, I don't know if you guys participated in that. I thought that was kind of fun. You know, they did a pre-recorded segment with Kevin Hart, and he was being Kevin Hart, and it was hysterical, you know, and they did some great live streaming, and it feels like we kind of need to shake off some of the limitations and kind of self-imposed restrictions of what we did over the pandemic, and let's bring some fun back into retail, because I think we deserve it. I think the industry will be better off, and goodness knows my clients certainly need that as well.
And in terms of just having fun while shopping, that's one element is while online shopping. What about shopping at stores? You know, because for a while we were saying the store is dead, and now everybody wants to go back to the store to shop.
Yeah, I wonder if Mark Andreessen wants to take back that line from 2014 where he said retail stores are dead. Maybe a little bit. Of course, he's in the business of maybe making them go away. I think physical retail is still massively important. A lot of my clients are CPG brands, so that's kind of where the vast majority of that is sold. I think we have the tendency to get more inspired, maybe be a little bit more productive when we're shopping in physical stores. Those in-person 3D sensorial experiences that you get from shopping a store, I don't think can yet be replicated even with the promise of what Web3 and Meta are going to do. So I don't think you need to over-invest in your physical experience, but you certainly need to make it profound and worthy of the customer's time and attention, because 76% of all retail dollars are still, maybe even more in some categories, are still spent in physical stores, and they are worthy of our best efforts.
And speaking of not over-investing in a certain retail channel, is there one that comes to mind in terms of retailers just over-utilizing?
Physical retail?
Just a retail channel.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. Beverages kind of have to still be sold in physical retail. I work in a number of regulated categories, alcohol and tobacco. And as a result, it's hard to do that through e-commerce. So I think some of those experiences need to change fundamentally, because I think the future isn't just toggling between I get it on e-commerce or I get it in a physical store. There will be some hybrid in between. You know, the big thing that I think is coming that we all need to get ready for is autonomous last mile delivery. Right, you see the investments that Walmart is making in some of those electric delivery vehicles, and some of which will be autonomous. When that happens, think of the revolutionary change that's going to happen in this category, or in all of retail. And I think we're going to see that in really profound ways in the next year, which will put less emphasis on the physical store being the exploratory and the delivery, and make it much more exploratory. So.
And are there other retail channels that you feel like could be really great for brands, whether it's like metaverse or live commerce or social commerce? Yeah,
metaverse is definitely coming in Web3 specifically, right? We think about metaverse and Web3 in terms of virtual worlds. We think about it in terms of NFTs and blockchain. We think about it in terms of augmented reality. And then we also think about kind of enhanced web experiences as kind of the four categories. That's coming. It's going to take a while for it to kind of crawl out of its shell. What's interesting though, and if you guys are not on Roblox, get on Roblox, right? Because that is a portal into what the future holds for how we're going to be buying and exploring brands. Might be a little bit uncomfortable for some of us to get on there, but look at the numbers. right? 48% of the people who are on Roblox almost every day are under the age of 13, right? Those are, if you're in the retail business, tomorrow's consumers, right? So knowing that this is where they're forming impressions and how they want to interact with brands, you guys have an obligation to know how to do that. So if you haven't bought an NFT, get one. If you don't have a digital wallet set up, create one and just start stumbling around in Roblox, and you're going to be much better prepared for this conversation next year. So.
Is there a brand that you think is doing wonders in the metaverse? It's a luxury brand, a DTC brand.
Honestly, I think PacSun is probably the last brand in the world that I would have thought 6 months ago to say, but they are, you know, the sportswear, beach kind of wear, great innovators, very youthful audience. They have embraced a couple of things about the metaverse that I think are profound. Number one, they went all the way in without having all of the answers, which you have to respect them for, right? That kind of courage in the environment of the pandemic, I think, is profound. The other thing that they're doing is and we can talk about this more, is they're making big use of live streaming, right? That's done not only through the web, but also through kind of an AR environment. But the last thing that they're doing is they are creating avatar-specific sellable products on their website for use in Roblox and some of the other Web3 environments. Their number one selling item is a set of golden angel wings that you use in Roblox. So think about that. PacSun, the apparel company, number one selling item is something you can't physically touch that is part of your avatar online. So if there isn't a clearer metaphor for where this industry is headed, I think that's pretty profound. So.
And I know you mentioned you wanted to touch a little bit more on live streaming.
Yes.
Clearly, we're lagging behind here in the
I'm
US.
incredibly excited about live streaming. 7 months ago, I didn't feel that way, but I'm starting to triangulate information, and it's starting to be kind of the biggest duh of the last 5 years. Very popular in China, as you guys are familiar with fashion and cosmetics. It's been huge. But the statistics on what live streaming is doing in the US is remarkable. If you buy a product online through e-commerce that you had seen through a live streaming event, you are 1/3 as likely to return it. You are 60% more likely to recommend it to others and 4 times as likely to come and buy something again from that brand. Right, and the difference between video, and you guys may know this, but the difference between selling something on video and live streaming is there is an interaction with the host. Right, and Prime Day did it a little bit last week. I was a tiny bit disappointed by this, but when you're interacting with the host as the viewer, you can ask questions, and there is a moderator that fields those questions to the host. So if you have a question about size or color or texture or what have you, it can be answered in real time. So 40% of the people today in the United States that watch a live streaming event end up buying, if not immediately, within the next 24 hours. I think that is absolutely profound. The other thing I do want to say to kind of separate live streaming from video commerce is live streaming is conducted with a host, and that host is generally a product expert. What brands are finding is employees of the brand that's doing the live streaming are the world's best hosts because they can answer almost any question. The difference is influencers are really skilled at selling themselves. Hosts are really good at selling whatever it is that they're hosting. And I think that's a profound difference in orientation. So it also maybe speaks to the level of sophistication that consumers now have and the type of information they want. I'm terribly excited about live streaming.
I guess in the same vein is social commerce. That is also something I feel like is picking up, but is still kind of underutilized.
Well, we have lots of platforms, you know, so you kind of have to find what is your voice. I think social commerce needs to solve a gap in your strategy, or maybe it is your strategy as opposed to, oh, we've got TikTok, which some would argue, is that social platform or is that an entertainment platform? I won't answer that, but that's kind of a discussion. You've got Instagram, you've got Facebook shops, you've got Pinterest now kind of doing all of that. So if that is the right particular social channel for your audience, then I think you have to go all the way in. For small brands that aren't carried in national retailers, that can be your entire strategy. You know, you rewind 10 or 12 years back to Dollar Shave Club and how well they did with DTC funded through social commerce and referral. I mean, if it's done well, it can work really, really well. We know that's the future. I mean, we're up in the last 18 months, 50% more e-commerce sales, largely funded by social commerce. So.
Do you shop a lot online?
I try to do less, but yes, I do shop a lot online.
But I guess going back to your point about what small brands can do in terms of just optimizing social commerce, how would you say your brand and marketing strategy differs based on if it's a legacy brand or a DTC brand?
Well, I think they're kind of becoming the same thing, right? I mean, I don't think you can look at a brand, even a 100-year-old brand that I work on, and say we're marketing it differently because of its provenance than a brand new startup. I think you have to think about audience receptivity. You have to think about what's engaging to them and start there. I think we're kind of throwing off the shackles of a lot of what we used to think defined modern commerce marketing, and I don't see any difference anymore. To give you one example of how I feel that way, one of the companies that I follow, a VC company out of Silicon Valley, you guys have probably heard about Andreessen Horowitz. They have a woman named Connie Chan, she's called the China Whisperer. Her job is to kind of find out what's happening in China. And she and I had a conversation about 6 months ago, and she said, one of the most interesting things coming out of China is this concept called private traffic. How many of you have heard of private traffic? Oh, good. This is a perfect audience for this then. So in China, where email marketing doesn't work, going back to that idea of legacy, people exchange their WeChat handle instead of email for your connection to the brand. So if you start shopping for something, or if you buy something or review it, you exchange your WeChat handle. Now, what's interesting about that is a DTC communication between the brand and the consumer and shopper. But what goes further in that those shoppers and consumers can now communicate amongst themselves and set up communities around that brand that the brand does not control. That is the future of DTC, and I would say that's the future of kind of modern marketing as well. So it's not here yet because we're still obsessively tied to email. I think once we figure out something a little bit more sophisticated, we can kind of move past some of that. So I'm not anti-email, don't get me wrong, but there are some limitations because it's one way.
And I guess I know we're running short on time, so I do want to ask you one more question, which is if there was one piece of key strategy advice that you can give to all brands today, all retailers in this climate, what would that be?
Find your fun. Right? I think there's a huge sucking sound for fun in retail right now. I think we have solved efficiency, right? I think we've taken friction out of the system, but we've just taken sexiness and compellingness out of that system as well. And I think every brand can be fun. And I think to be a sophisticated marketer today, to do the best for your brands and your consumers, you have to find a way to interject some degree of wistfulness and whimsy into that process wherever you can. It can be part of your packaging, it can be part of the experience, it can be part of the DTC experience that follows, but I think we're desperate for it. We are absolutely desperate for it, and I think it's the people in this room, in this industry, it's upon us to fix that. So, and I think we can.
All right. Well, I think we have some time for audience questions. So if you do have a question, raise your hand, and we'll grab your mic, and please tell us your name and the company you work for before you ask a question.
Hi, thank you both so much. My name is Roshana, and I'm from Plant Burger. And you just talked about instilling fun back into retail. What about millennials, Gen Z? I'm a Gen Xer, but millennials, Gen Z, 5 years ago, it was all about they wanted to buy for purpose. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we should also consider doing?
Without a doubt. We call it in the agency the V-squared framework of value and values. A brand cannot stop talking about their distinction and what their value is in the category space, but you have to acknowledge that we're getting to the point where specifically Gen Z are starting to make more purchase decisions based on that. You can't ever walk away from that. It's a lot like inclusivity. You have to kind of walk the walk. So that when it needs to be discovered or when you need to promote it, you actually have something that you can talk about because it's fundamentally the right thing to do. So absolutely, you cannot step away from that today. That is a massive issue. You know, you think about kind of some brands that have done that really well, like trying to think Neutrogena with traditionally the cosmetic wipes where they market them as wipes to get rid of the powder from the Hollyfest. And you think about what Gillette has done with, you know, We All Shave, some of us less successfully than others, but, you know, it was less about male and female shave where they featured trans people in their advertising. And that was uniquely effective because they didn't say anything about it. They just did it. So I think you have to avoid some of those labels today that are very important and just kind of walk the talk of doing that. And values is a big part of that. And I think values fall a little bit beyond your question. I think sustainability specifically falls into three major areas that brands need to be focused on. One is carbon reduction, one is waste reduction, and the third is, are you treating your people fairly? Right, there is that social contract of I don't want to buy a brand that is abusing their vendors or their employees. So those are kind of the three big things that are bubbling up today in terms of importance. So did that answer your question?
Very much. Thank you.
Cool.
Any more questions?
Hi there. Chris Amrod, Y-Pulse, Gen Z, and Millennial Market Research Company. I actually own 2 pairs of Chubby's bathing suits, as a side note. They're great.
Flags or palm trees?
It's the palm trees, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So as you're advising your clients, on strategy, whether it's related to marketing communications, product innovation, how to allocate ad spend, how do you discern between what might be just a flash in the pan, something with a short-term impact on the business, and then something more long-term, where it's really going to drive strategy for, 5 years, et cetera?
It's hard to tell, right? I mean, once you start to see investors, media, consumers, and retailers glomming onto trends, you can start to understand that that's going to be something that's going to be more longer lasting, where it shows kind of a habitual habit change and kind of reliance. But you have to be in a lot of these things that are emerging just because you don't want to be late to the party, right? If you start doing live streaming a year from now, all of your competitors are going to have a year's worth of experience on top of you, right? Which is going to be devastating for you. I think you have to kind of dip your toe in the water. You have to play around with some of these things. A lot of brands are setting up skunk work-like innovation groups and budgets just so that they can have some familiarity with that. It's impossible to tell. If I could, I'd spend all my time trading on TD Ameritrade and figuring out the new technologies, but it's hard to tell. They come and go. I think that's the natural evolution of this, and I think each technology and each media platform we learn something from, and which makes the next one a little bit better, right? Think about MySpace. Nobody talks about that anymore, and the list of those social platforms and those sorts of things have gone away, but each one tends to get a little bit incrementally better. So to answer your question, I don't know, but you got to be prepared for everything. So.
Mo Patel from UTech. Curt, do you see eventing happening in terms of taking your community from the metaverse and bringing them to the retail side, probably promoting a product or whatever it is, or even having like a blue light special like Sears used to do back in the days? Thank you.
I think there will be a great question. I think there will be a profound integration between metaverse and Web3 and physical experiences. Some in the agency and clients think the future is digital experiences because they're more sustainable. Some of us think there will be a hybrid experience where it may start in the physical environment and then you continue it through AR or Meta later on. I'm typically kind of excited about that because then you're creating the next interaction with the consumer and the next way to delight and impress. Yeah, there's no doubt. VR certainly is going to be part of those experiences, but Web3 in terms of bringing more content, more visual images, more 3D, more deeper product experiences are definitely going to be part of that. Yeah. I think there's a whole field in our industry devoted specifically to that question.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today, but thank you so much, Curt, again, for joining us and for your amazing insights, and Katishi and John. I also want to thank our sponsor, Bolt, once again. And if you enjoyed the conversations today, then please join us for the Retail Brew Summit, the SKU, which is an all-day event happening on October 25th, right here in New York City. We'll have a lot of interesting brands coming in, from Crocs to TikTok to Kroger. It'll be a great, fun day of conversations and connections. But that wraps up the day for us. And hopefully I'll see you at the summit or in the newsletter. Thank you.